Here we are here on a Thursday. Welcome into the Stone Shield Show. My name is Stone Shields. Appreciate everybody hanging out with us here this morning. No off the bench throughout the remainder of the week, so my show was bumped up, of course, to 10 o'clock, and we'll be here for the next hour or so talking all things sports. Here on the show, got an exciting show planned out. Obviously, we're going to talk Bengals and Jets. Massive game this week for Cincinnati, winless team in the New York Jets, but very important game for Cincinnati to come away victorious. We'll spend a little bit of time talking about that. Got Hudson Clocky in about 10 minutes. Going to be talking some UC Bearcats football with us. Big game for the Cats this week as they host Baylor at Nippert Stadium. That should be pretty exciting, so looking forward to talking to Hudson on the show here today. Also, Thursday night football matchup, Chargers-Vikings. No J.J. McCarthy once again. It will be Carson Wentz. I think that has an opportunity to be a really good Thursday night game. I think they've done a nice job of kind of shifting, the Thursday night schedule a couple of years ago. It always felt like it was kind of a stinker, right? It was, we get football on Thursday. That's nice, but the game's no good. Now you see more, divisional matchups. This one obviously not one, but I think it's a matchup against two solid teams and two really well-coached teams as well, so it should be a good one tonight. Lots of people out there discussing the beef between Sean Payton and Russell Wilson. We will do that as well here on the show. And I'm a Sean Payton guy, and I'm not a Russ guy, but kind of side with Russ a little bit here on this one. And also we have our NBA predictions to round out today's show as, we are 2 days in now. It was a full slate of NBA games last night, plenty of good ones, a couple of more tonight. But we'll have our predictions here in the NBA. Before we get to Hudson, do want to talk about the Cincinnati Bengals. As always, make sure you hit that subscribe button, of course. Like the stream if you haven't done so already. Give us a follow. And the podcast will be up wherever you get your podcast later this afternoon, so don't miss out on that. Off the Bench will be back next week with Reed, and then my show back in the normal slots of 11 o'clock. Bengals-Jets. Interesting game, right? I made the point earlier in the week here on the show that it kind of feels like more of a must-win than last week in some ways, which is kind of funny to say that. But you're facing a team in the New York Jets. They're winless, right? And if you want to sit here and act like there's a chance for you to get back in this playoff race and have an opportunity to be live when Joe Burrow comes back, right, all the good stuff everybody keeps talking about, you have to win this game. Right? It's the worst team in the National Football League. There's a couple of bad ones. There's a couple of bottom feeders. You could argue that some of the one-win teams maybe are worse than the Jets, but this is as bad as it gets, in my opinion. And they have some controversy there at the quarterback position. But I did want to play this soundbite on today's show from head coach Aaron Glenn. The Jets are just an unserious organization, and they have been for some time, right? Woody Johnson calling the shots, their owner. He was banging on Justin Fields earlier in the week, which, I don't necessarily have much of an issue with it, but usually when the owner's out there talking about football, like, you just kind of want to stay in your lane and let the coaches coach and let the players play, right? These owners, they're not football people, right? They're billionaires and they own the team, and they obviously have a lot of pull, but, they're not really football guys. And Woody Johnson has been in situations for most of my life where he's saying stuff that he probably shouldn't say. But Aaron Glenn was a terrific defensive coordinator for the Detroit Lions. He has an opportunity to come over and be the head coach. He's only 7 games in, but to me it just doesn't seem like it is going to work. But did want to play this soundbite of Aaron Glenn when they asked him what he was going to do at the quarterback position here on Sunday. Take a listen.
Who's your quarterback, AJ?
We will have a quarterback on Sunday. I will tell you that.
You're not going to announce who the starter is?
I wouldn't want to give them a competitive advantage when I have that opportunity, but we will have a quarterback.
The list was long. So for
Yeah.
Tyrod, did you say this day today?
Yes.
What is he dealing with?
He's dealing with a knee. That's something that he had before.
So just, who your starting quarterback is going to be, you're just not announcing it. So it isn't like this week is a competition where you're going to have,
I know who the starting quarterback's going to be.
Okay, you're just not telling me.
Yeah.
I mean, this guy, right? You're a winless team. You're clearly dysfunctional, right? And he had the clip of him, they kicked a field goal that they thought was going to win a game a couple of weeks ago, and he was kind of acting a fool on the sidelines. You want to get excited, whatever, that's fine. But this has just been a disastrous start for Aaron Glenn. I mean, I don't know what he thinks he's doing. I mean, he has the right to do this. But we will have a quarterback on Sunday. Oh, you think so, Aaron? I think we all know that, right? You're going to go out there and play football. Of course, there's going to be somebody lined up behind the center. I mean, come on. he wants to be, sneaky about it. That's fine. Zach Taylor, of course, he said all the right things. The media here in Cincinnati asked him about it, and then they asked him who he was going to start at the offensive line. He's like, I think I'll keep that close to the vest there as well. Dylan Fairchild, by the way, was getting reps for Cincinnati. He missed last week, and last week, of course, the Bengals offensive line played the best they have played, and now he's back to getting reps with the starters. We'll talk about that a little bit on the show there as well. But Aaron Glenn, it's just it kind of feels like a one and done, especially with Woody Johnson and how quick he is to make decisions, how impulsive he is as an owner, right? But I just didn't. What are you doing there, Aaron Glenn? Oh, we will have a quarterback. Oh, you think so? You think so? So, hopefully Cincinnati can take it to him regardless of who the quarterback is. Kind of feels like it's going to be Fields, right? It felt like it was going to be Taylor. Now he pops up with this injury. Glenn, of course, said that, he's had the injury for a little bit here, something that he's been dealing with. Fields has been putrid. But if there's one team that Justin Fields might be able to look decent against, it's probably Cincinnati, because he's going to be able to run around back there all day. If you remember, of course, Aaron Rodgers was doing that last week for the Pittsburgh Steelers. As it relates to injuries, obviously, Trey Hendrickson is a piece that Cincinnati desperately wants back there on their football team, and he was limited in practice Wednesday. My gut tells me he's going to play. Apparently, he was close to playing on Thursday, and if it was a longer week and not a short week on a Thursday, maybe there was an opportunity for him to potentially play in a game against Pittsburgh. Hopefully, he can come back and provide some pass rush, because obviously that was non-existent without him. Tanner Hudson had the concussion. He missed the game. He was limited Wednesday. I expect him to return, and this was kind of the one for me. Cedric Johnson is back, and he was a full participant in practice. Cedric Johnson was a 6th-round pick out of Ole Miss a couple of years ago, and I was excited when the Bengals took him. I think he has some pass rush ability. He plays the edge rusher position. Wasn't active a ton last year, but I felt like when he was out there, he showed me some stuff, some positive things. And he was kind of a guy that I looked to this year, despite the early round picks that you have at that very same position. I was kind of hoping that, he could perhaps show a little something and show a little juice in that pass rush. And he's been out with the calf, and now he's back. And he's practicing, was full yesterday at practice. And I think this is a guy, Cincinnati, and I tweeted this yesterday, should give an opportunity sooner rather than later, even if Trey Hendrickson is able to go against the New York Jets. Because, look, the definition of stupidity is trying the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. That would be sending out the same guys that Cincinnati has at the pass rush spot, right? It doesn't work, right? Without Trey, those guys, hopefully Shamar Stewart can get better. I'm not writing him off by any stretch. He's only played in, 3 games now, so I'm giving him a chance. But the Miles Murphy thing, you got to lick your wounds, right? 1st-round pick, you whiffed, right? Has he done in the Minnesota game, funnily enough, the game in which you got blown out? He was solid in that game. But it's kind of run its course. It's time to give another guy a chance. I get he was a late-round guy, but at the same time, he was a draft pick. There's 6th-round draft picks all over the National Football League that produce. And, he played in the SEC. He's had a lot of, big game experience in college. I thought he wasn't over his skis by any stretch in the limited playing time that he got last year. Cedric Johnson, a guy that I would like to see have an opportunity here. Charlie Jones, he's got a rib. He was limited participant. And I said this going into the Pittsburgh game, and they didn't really make the change. I'm ready to see somebody else try it out at the return spots. There's really been no juice there from Charlie Jones. I get he ran one back in Cleveland last year, and he had the punt, of course, that he ran back his rookie year. But, whether it's Burton or, Tinsley or somebody else, I would like to see somebody else kind of get back out there and have an opportunity in the return game. Matt Lee's on the injury report, a backup offensive lineman, limited participant. Doesn't mean much. And then 2 guys that did not practice, and that includes Cam Sample, who's coming back from the Achilles. I liked Cam Sample before the Achilles injury. He, of course, an edge rusher, has had some opportunities this year, hasn't been able to do much, right? Remember they lined him up and asked him to be in coverage against a tight end against Detroit, and that was just a ridiculous situation there. And then Marco Wilson, this is significant, kind of a guy that they really trust in coverage, especially on 3rd downs. He did not practice on Wednesday with a hamstring, and it was, of course, when he came back and he was able to go, that's what resulted in Cam Taylor Britt being a healthy scratch. So maybe 1 week after CTB being a healthy scratch, he'll be right back in there if Marco Wilson is not able to go. Sauce has a concussion for the Jets. He's their second best player behind Garrett Wilson. So that obviously is very, very noteworthy. And Wilson has the knee, and he did not participate in practice there either. Quincy Williams, our linebacker, he was a full go with the shoulder. Tyrod was limited, so we still don't know, as we're live here, who the quarterback's going to be. Jermaine Johnson was limited. Jay Tufele, former Cincinnati Bengal, he did not practice. And what else we got here? Stone Smart, their tight end, also did not practice there. But Sauce and Garrett, their two best players, and they haven't been practicing. So I would assume that they're probably leaning towards not participating. But, again, it's a Wednesday. Lots of people don't participate on Wednesdays, so we'll see. But this is a very favorable matchup for Cincinnati. I get it's an NFL team. I get they're winless. They're going to be hungry. They're going to be coming with everything that they got. But this is kind of an opportunity here for Cincinnati to, rattle off back-to-back wins and have a chance to generate some momentum going into a bye. I know you have Chicago as well before the bye, but that could be a massive game for Cincinnati. Despite the fact it's a winless team, that certainly puts them in a good position to get some momentum on their side. Joe Flacco, every single time he talks to the media, I just like him a little bit more. He had the comment yesterday that's kind of going viral a little bit about, how being in restaurants, and usually he would feel bad for the guy that he saw sitting there eating or drinking alone at the bar or at wherever the case may be. And then he made the comment yesterday that no, that guy's actually in heaven, and that kind of made me chuckle a little bit. But Joe Flacco seemingly has come in here and he's done everything right since he was asked to be the starter against Green Bay in a short week. It was absolutely tremendous, and hopefully he can continue that momentum here going against the Jets team. Of course, one of his former teams there as well in the New York Jets, and he's here in Cincinnati. His family is still in New Jersey, and he's just kind of here by himself playing ball, and he's got some really good weapons out there. And I think some of us are kind of holding our breath a little bit, right? Because we know Joe Flacco, of course, has thrown some interceptions throughout his career, and he's been perfect as it relates to protecting the football so far during his time in Cincinnati, and hopefully that's something that can continue, because if the Bengals win the turnover battle in this game against the Jets, they protect the football. I think they're going to be in a spot where they should win this game. They have more talent on the field despite all the issues that they have on the defensive side. But we're going to transition this conversation a little bit to some UC Bearcats football. We said it was really only a matter of time before we started discussing them kind of at length here on the show, and I'll be honest, I did not see this coming. Now, I am not as close. I don't follow the team as closely as our guest does here, and we're going to bring him on right now, and that is Hudson Clockie. Did I say that right? Did I butcher the last name? Did I do that all right, Hudson?
It was a slight butcher.
Okay. Clockie. Okay, I was close.
Clockie's good enough, though. No, that's good enough.
Okay, Clockie. Well, Hudson, I appreciate you stopping by, man. Thanks for coming on the show. My first question is this. I know there's some people that have followed the team closely this offseason going into this year, and there was some optimism that they potentially could be a good football team, and they've rattled off all these wins consecutively since the opening loss to Nebraska. And is this something that you expected, or has this kind of caught you by surprise a little bit as well?
I wish I said I expected it, that the Bearcats are ranked and bowl eligible in October. Unfortunately, no, I didn't see it coming. I thought they were better than people gave them credit for. A lot of, the predictive sites and things were putting them, 14th, 13th, 15th in the Big 12. I thought that was a little ridiculous because if we remember last year, they started out the season strong, not as strong as they are right now. And then they just proceeded to lose 5 straight games.
Right.
Then the Cans coach, Coach Satterfield came out, but they still brought back some elite players in a Joe Royer, a Brendan Sorsby, a Corleone. And then it came down to, hey, what are we getting in the portal? It was a lot of unknowns, turned out to be really good players. But having Brendan Sorsby come back gave me faith that this team can actually be good and competitive this year.
And talking about Scott Satterfield, I thought, when they lost Luke Fickell, it was kind of like it almost felt like they were caught off guard a little bit. And they're like, who are we going to bring in here? And they bring in Satterfield, and Satterfield borderline was on the hot seat of his previous job. And I wasn't the biggest fan of the hire. And I think some people in the fan base over the course of the past few years have certainly been banging on Scott Satterfield a little bit, but he deserves a lot of credit for what they've been able to do this year. What is your general thoughts and synopsis of the job that he has done to this point?
He's done great, man. We'll see. We're coming into a juggernaut of a schedule in the back half of this thing, so we will see. We don't want to count our chickens before they hatch here, but he's been phenomenal so far. I know, when we hired him from Louisville, to your point, it's never a good sign when you see all the Louisville fan base commenting, "Thank God you got him off our hands. Thank God we're done with Satterfield, Mr. 7-5." So I was a little bit worried, and he started out, he won 8 games in 2 years, and right now we're sitting at 6-1. So he's probably going to get to his total win of 2 seasons in 1 season here in his 3rd year. Now we'll see how he finishes, but he's done great, man. The offense is a juggernaut. The defense, we could discuss that at a later time, but the offense is fantastic, and he's got weapons all over the place. So you got to give credit to Satterfield.
Let's talk a little bit about the game this week. It's home at Nippert Stadium. The environment should be absolutely unbelievable. And as you mentioned, the schedule kind of transitioning a little bit here. Obviously, the Iowa State game, that's a huge win, but there's some difficult opponents here. Baylor, of course, I think they're a solid team. They're coming off a loss, bit of a shootout there against TCU. Their quarterback, Sawyer Robertson, is really, really good. What are your kind of expectations coming into this game, and maybe some keys to victory for Cincinnati to continue this streak on Saturday at Nippert?
Yeah, I don't think it's any secret. I think it's going to be a shootout. Both defenses are bad. Baylor's defense is actually worse. If you look at any statistical analysis, Baylor's defense is worse than UC. UC's defense is bad in everything, minus scoring. They're only giving up about 19 points a game. Now, they haven't turned the ball over. Sawyer Robertson, for as good as Brennan Sorsby has, just to give you some context, Brennan Sorsby's thrown for 1,700 yards. Sawyer Robertson's thrown for 2,300, almost 2,400 yards. He slings the ball. He threw it over 50 times against TCU last week. I can only anticipate we're going to see more of that. Now, he does turn the ball over, though. He threw 3 picks. Cincinnati has not turned the ball over. They do the bend, don't break, but you got to turn the ball over when you start playing really good teams. And Sawyer Robertson has shown to do that with those 3 picks, like I said. So it's going to come down to turnovers. I think, having 1 interception on the season is not ideal for a college football team that's 6-1. But credit to the defense. They're swarming. They can tackle well. But the 3-3-5 strategy they put out there sometimes, I think it's going to bite them in the ass at some point. We will see. But I think they got to turn Sawyer over, and I think the offense is going to hum either way.
I think for me watching this team this year, I think in years past with Satterfield, they haven't really had guys on the outside that could necessarily win for you in one-on-one situations, in my opinion. And I think that allowed kind of the defenses to stack the box a little bit, stop the run, and that kind of, caused some issues for UC. This year it seems like they've got guys on the outside that if you want to put them in one-on-one situations, they're going to win, and Sorsby's going to get them the football. Do you think there's any truth into that as far as the receivers go?
Oh, yeah. And it seemed like last year we just didn't have those weapons, like you said, and they started stacking the box. They started following around Joe Royer. He didn't have a great second half of last season. And our receivers were tiny. I think the average height of our receivers last year was like 5'9". Now we got a guy like Jeff Caldwell, 6'5", Cyrus Allen, Caleb Goody, Joe Royer. The list goes on and on. There's a lot of talent out there, and it seems like, pick your poison. Who's going to step up? It's been a new guy almost every week. Cyrus Allen seems like he's the go-to receiver, but we've seen Jeff Caldwell. We've even seen Noah Jennings. I'll be honest, Stone, I didn't even know Noah Jennings existed until he had that one-handed catch against Kansas. So they have way more weapons and more size on the outside, which certainly opens things up, and we've seen that in the running game too, not allowing the defense just to stack the box on us.
Let's talk about Brennan Sorsby here for a second, because he's really blown me away with his performance. And, when you talk about the top quarterbacks in the country, obviously Julian Sayin and Ty Simpson, guys like that are getting a lot of buzz right now. But Sorsby's playing the position at an elite level. Did you expect him to kind of be this good? And what do you think his ceiling is really throughout the rest of the year?
So I did expect him not maybe this good. He threw the ball away a lot last year. He's turning the ball over. That's really when the season, went off the rails. And he's thrown 1 interception. And that was week 1, the last possession of the game against Nebraska in Arrowhead. It was basically a road game. He's thrown 1 interception. He's taking care of the football. He's playing elite level, across the board, really. His running game is even better than last year, which I did not expect. But I knew you could see that he's got the formula to be an elite quarterback. Now, You're starting to see the national media talk about Sorsby a little bit. They're throwing him in there, Heisman odds. I think he's like top 15. He should be top 5. If we weren't, Big 12 where the media just hates the Big 12, I think he'd be right in the mix because his stats are right up there with anybody. And I'm getting a little bit worried, though. If he gets too much praise, then he's going to go to the NFL draft. That's what worries me. I think I don't see why. He's got the frame. He's got the size. He's got the running ability, and the NFL likes quarterbacks that can run now. I am a little bit worried that all of a sudden he's going to get a third-round grade, and this will be his last season at Cincinnati. Selfishly, I'd love him to stay and do another year.
So as it relates to the Big 12, I thought, over the course of the past few weeks, in my opinion, Texas Tech was clearly kind of a step above everybody else. And, of course, they lost last week. And now you look here and you're like, wow, UC has a real chance here in the conference. They could be playing in the conference championship game. As it relates to the conference as a whole, where do you feel you are as far as UC's, realistic chances of perhaps, competing and, getting to the conference championship? Is that a, real possibility for this team?
I think so. I told Trace that a couple weeks ago. I'm like, there's a real possibility. We don't play Texas Tech. I know Texas Tech's a juggernaut. They got a salary cap of the likes of the Cleveland Browns over there at Texas Tech. And we saw them lose. I mean, they're beatable. There's no team that's not beatable for UC on the schedule. Now, playing like at Utah, for example, that's going to be really tough. I think they got a great quarterback over there. But it's wide open. And we're sitting in the driver's seat. If we would have lost, if UCF or something would have stole a game from us, or we would have lost that Kansas game, I'd be, singing a different tune right now. But we're sitting there at 4-0, tied with BYU. That BYU game is going to be a huge game as well. But I think if you win this game against Baylor, and Baylor's capable of beating us, let's make that clear. They're a talented football team. If you win that game and you're 5-0, then we can really start talking about, hey, is this team going to make it to the Big 12 championship? Because I think they'll be in the driver's seat.
BYU, they're ranked 11 now. They haven't lost a game. They've been in some close games. It looks like they've been dead in some games, and then they come back and find a way to win. They got a freshman quarterback in Bachmeier. Are they the real deal, or do you think they're borderline fraudulent here?
Yeah, it's like I want to call them frauds, but I have no proof of it. That's where I'm at with BYU. I just don't have the proof. Like they've won every game. I thought the freshman quarterback, like you mentioned, was going to take them a step back because we anticipated they were going to be really good, and then they had to switch quarterbacks. He left. And so I thought they were going to take a step back, but, I mean, they just kept it going. So they're not frauds yet, but they're on my list. I'm just waiting for that one game where they slip up, and then I will throw the fraud tag on BYU.
Defensively for Cincinnati, it seems like that probably is the weakness because this offense, of course, is so explosive and can score a bunch of points. I mean, you've played UCF and Oklahoma State the past couple of weeks. That's, not really good teams there, I would say. But from a defensive perspective, what are your biggest concerns here going forward? Because Baylor has a good offense, Utah is a good team, and, of course, BYU. And then TCU, your final game. You're really going to find out here what this team is made of as a whole. Defensively, what are your biggest questions here?
They got to get off the field. Like I said, if we're going to do this 3-3-5 defense where you keep everything in front of you, you don't let them get into the end zone. But at some point, if the offense isn't scoring touchdowns, because I can't remember the last time they haven't scored on a drive, the offense. And I think that you can't expect that every single week. So you got to create turnovers. You got to get your defense off the field. I mean, we've seen it in almost every game, the time of possession, and some of that has to do with Sorsby just slinging the ball down the field, scoring quickly. But it's been very lopsided, and I'm talking against bad offenses. I mean, Bowling Green controlled the game from a possession standpoint. UCF with a backup quarterback controlled the possession, and we're talking like 40 minutes to 20 minutes, so it's not even close. The good news is with our defense, there's a lot of depth, so they rotate guys in and out, and you have to when they're playing, 75% of the game. But that's what worries me is being on the field for too long, not letting Sorsby have more opportunities. And then not turning the ball over. Like I said, you got to have more interceptions than one coming into, week 9.
From a prediction standpoint, what are you thinking here? As you mentioned, Baylor very well could beat this UC team. Are you worried about them, getting a little bit too confident, thinking it's going to be too easy, just roll in here at Nippert and get the job done? You got a score prediction for us on how you think this is going to play out?
Yeah, I'll say 45-31. Bearcats take it.
All right.
14 points. So take the spread. I think it's 3.5 right now.
Yeah.
Hammer the Cats. Homecoming too, Stone.
Oh, there we go. So I mean, I mean, some of these environments at Nip, I mean, the place will show out. If you got a good football team, they'll show out for you. And I'm not going to say it's one of the best home field advantages, but that's a fun environment there at Nip. No.
Oh no, it's great. It's small. Like
right.
if you're looking at Big 12 capacity, it's one of the smaller stadiums in the conference. But they get loud, especially when we're good, man. It's been a while too, so trust me, they'll be showing out. The Cincy lights will be flowing on Saturday. I promise you that.
Yeah. Before I let you go, I want to ask you a couple of questions about the basketball team. Look, I went to Miami. I'm not a UC guy. My parents went to UC, but I love following the UC basketball team. I've been a big believer in Wes, but he kind of just wants the season ends and you're just like, you wanted a little bit more. What if you're in the Big 12 as a conference, of course, and basketball is a total different juggernaut as it relates to football, but what are your expectations here going into this basketball season? I believe in the exhibition game, correct me if I'm wrong, they beat Michigan. Is that right?
They beat Michigan, number 7 team in the country, allegedly. They had a couple guys out. But yeah, I mean, that gives you a vote of confidence. I know exhibitions don't count, but I mean, this is a brand new team. They returned 2 players and they come out, score over 100 against Michigan. Good signs, because there was an injury with Jalen Haynes, guy from George Mason that transferred over that I thought was going to be a big part of it. Seems like he's going to be out for the season. They haven't actually gave the details yet, which typically means probably not great. But they got a lot of depth, and there's a lot of talent on the team. And like you said, Wes continually does it every offseason. You see these portal hauls and the recruits that come in, and you're like, wow. And he talks the talk. Yeah. I mean, he's the greatest speaker probably ever in coaching history. So he gets you going. But after 5 straight seasons not making the tournament, he's got to do it. So it's make or break for Wes Miller. It was kind of the same thing for Scott Satterfield this year. I'm expecting them to make the tournament. I'm thinking middle of the pack in the Big 12, which is no slouch. If you finish in that 7 to 8 range, you're going to be in the NCAA tournament. So that's what I'm hoping for. Again, it's a lot of new guys, completely new roster makeup, so it might take a little bit of time to gel. But they got some good out-of-conference games too, which we haven't had in the last few seasons of Wes, where we don't really know what this team has. We'll know pretty quickly. We got Louisville, Xavier, of course, on the road. I know they're struggling, but we haven't won at Cintas Stone since I was like 6. So we got to win that game. But I'm expecting good things from Wes Miller and the Bearcats this year.
No Jizzle James this year, and when he was a freshman, it was, wow, this guy's unbelievable, and I remember thinking, get him on the court more, like, what are we doing here? But then it kind of feels like, in maybe some ways, he was kind of a cancer to the team. Do you think there's anything to that? Do you think they're better off, honestly, without him?
Well, yeah, partly yes, and the fact that he left it in late August was not ideal, because I'm sitting there going, hey, we could have used that money elsewhere and maybe brought in a couple of guys instead of him. So when we lost him, not great, but I was really saying it towards the end of last season. I think he's a really talented player. I hope he does well wherever he ends up. But he, we called him Dribble James. He controlled the basketball a little bit too much. The offense wasn't flowing. It was stagnant. And you already saw it really in that exhibition game. Guys are moving. It's more fluid. It's not all on Jizzle James. Like I said, it's a whole new roster. But the way that he was scoring was contested mid-range jumpers. I don't want to get too, dorky analytical on you. But I think we know that's not really a recipe for a great offense with contested jump shots on an undersized guard. So, no, it could be addition by subtraction. We will see if somebody can pick up that scoring slack. I think that's one thing where we lack, is we don't have a definitive go-to scorer on this team. Somebody may, take that role. We will see. But yeah, I like what he's done with the roster makeup, and, crossing my fingers. I said this every year, man. I feel like this is a tournament team. We will see.
Yeah. They got one of the guys that you mentioned, or that when you're talking about guys in the portal, they bring in Kerr Kriisa, and it feels like he's 30 years of age and he's been playing college basketball forever. What's he going to bring to this team? Because he's had a lot of success at lots of different stops.
Kerr Kriisa, if you follow Cincinnati men's basketball on social media, that guy's having the time of his life right now. I mean, he really is. He loves it. They were just talking about yesterday, and some of the Chatterbox Bearcats guys dropped a video today, I think this morning, in regards to, he mentioned he may be able to get a 7th year of eligibility. And Wes Miller's already looking into it for next season, which, I guess bodes well. That means Wes Miller thinks he's making the NCAA tournament, because otherwise he's out the door. Right. But what he brings, man, is just a different energy. He is, we all saw the clip of him going at Luka Doncic in one of those Euro games, where he's in Luka Doncic's face. I mean, we're talking possibly the best player in the NBA. That's the type of confidence he brings, and he could shoot the hell out of the ball too. And we're talking about a guy that I feels like a decade ago. I mean, he led the Pac-12 in assists not that long ago. I mean, what was it? Really, actually, was long. It was like 5 years ago. So the guy can facilitate. He doesn't need the rock in his hands at all times. He will make some wildly bad passes. I promise you that. You'll see some turnovers from him. But I just love the energy he brings and his mentality. So I'm excited to see Kirk Creese. I've been a fan of him for, since he came out of high school.
Yeah, likewise. Certainly exciting times for the basketball program. Hopefully they can live up to the expectations, and hopefully the Bearcat football team can keep it rolling there as well. What do we have coming on Saturday? Any Chatterbox Bearcats content? We got a show anywhere? Do you want to enlighten us on what's going down?
Yeah, we'll be doing a live show after the game as we always do. So game's at 4 o'clock, so I'd say right around 7. Chatterbox Sports YouTube page.
Yep.
Me and Chuck will be jumping on, hopefully, having some victory beverages. And then we'll stay tuned for we're doing live shows at Martino's.
Yeah.
Typically for road games, though, because otherwise, home games, Martino's is going to be packed over on Short Vine. So we'll keep you in tune on that. We're trying to figure that out. Probably the Utah road game will be the next one. But, yeah, stay tuned. Chatterbox Bearcats YouTube page and Chatterbox Sports, of course.
Awesome. Sounds great, and best of luck with that, and hopefully the Bearcats can bring home another victory. Hudson, I appreciate you hopping on short notice. Had a lot of fun there, and hopefully we can do it again soon, brother. Appreciate you.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Take care. That is Hudson Clokey. Appreciate him stopping by. Chatterbox Bearcats. They will have content throughout the week, and as he mentioned, they will have a post-game show and hopefully a celebratory post-game show after the game against Baylor. That's a good game. I think we're going to find out a lot about this Cincinnati team. I mean, they beat Oklahoma State, UCF. Okay, right? They're not, certainly, Power 4 teams, right? But I don't know if necessarily that has really challenged you at all, coming on the heels, of course, of the Iowa State game. But they got some games coming up here where we're going to find out a lot about the Cincinnati Bearcats and just how good they are. I mean, Baylor's a tough matchup, Utah, and then, of course, BYU, TCU. So there's some tough ones on the schedule, and we'll see exactly how Scott Satterfield and his team are able to deal with that. Got a Thursday night football game here tonight. Minnesota Vikings and the Los Angeles Chargers. And, I mentioned this at the top of the show. It just kind of feels like, Thursday night this year has been exceptional, right? You have these, division matchups. They've all been great. You've had a lot of close games. It just feels bigger, right? And for a while, it just kind of felt like, it's Thursday night football. Yeah, we're thankful that we have a game on, but it didn't really mean much. And obviously, this is not a divisional matchup, but this is a matchup between two incredible coaching staffs. And the Los Angeles Chargers, of course, with Jim Harbaugh and Kevin O'Connell, of course, and the Minnesota Vikings. And this is a fascinating game to me. I believe right now, last I checked, it was 3.5 points. The Chargers that were favored at home here in this game. Obviously, Minnesota, they're trying to figure things out at quarterback. You had McCarthy for a couple of games. He was a first-round pick. He really struggled. You were able to win the one game where he came alive there in the fourth quarter, but then, he has this injury that sidelined him for a few weeks, and there's some people that have been back and forth about, is he really hurt, or they just they saw what happened in the first couple of games and said, he needs some more time here. Let's go with Carson Wentz. And Wentz, for the most part, has done a solid job, but he did turn the ball over a few times in their game last week, and that's going to be a big-time matchup here in this game. But I'm looking for this Charger defense to respond, right? This is Jesse Minter. It was supposed to be, and when you think about Harbaugh, you think about, tough, physical, running the football, playing defense, not making mistakes, and just kind of, bring your lunch pail type situation for these football games, and the Colts absolutely ran through them. I mean, they ran the ball with Taylor. They were chucking it down the field with Daniel Jones, and they felt like they were scoring every time they touched the football. So we'll see if they respond in a better way than that. I think a lot of people had high expectations for Los Angeles coming into the year. And, I thought they were a playoff team, right? I didn't necessarily think they were going to overtake Kansas City or Denver and win the division, but they felt like a playoff team. Of course, they were a playoff team last year, but they just kind of, you look at their schedule and you look what they've done over the course of these past few weeks. We had them as being one of the best bets of the weekend against the Colts, and that game really wasn't competitive for the most part when you're talking about the Los Angeles Chargers. And they kind of, I don't want to say get lucky, as they made some plays there against Miami, but that very well could be an L there as well. And now they're coming back home here. It's a short week, and we'll see exactly what they're able to do. I think Herbert, for the most part, has played good football, but Hampton, the running back, has gone down. They've struggled to run it. They've kind of become a little bit more one-dimensional, and their defense, of course, has caused them some issues there as well. And Minnesota, they're going to show up ready to go here in this game, and I think it's going to be a really close game if Carson Wentz can protect the football. They can run it a little bit there with Jordan Mason. I believe Aaron Jones is coming back, and obviously they got that duo there at receiver with Justin Jefferson and, of course, Jordan Addison here at this point. But, we talk about teams being a quarterback away, right? And that the Colts were a quarterback away, and they have been for a couple of years. And who would have thought? They got their guy, and it's Daniel Jones, right? The Vikings are very much a team that's a quarterback away there as well. And they had a quarterback, of course, last year in Sam Darnold, and they decided to let him walk and go with the rookie in J.J. McCarthy. And again, we've only seen him a couple of times. He's hurt. Of course, he was hurt last year as well, so that kind of becomes a concern. Whether or not he potentially is a guy that is quote unquote injury prone. But I said this when he was drafted. He was good at Michigan when he was under center, turning around, handing the football off. He had some big time games against Ohio State where he made some big time throws, but I don't view him as a franchise guy in the NFL. I never have. And, he was taken in the first round. I thought it was a mistake by Minnesota. If he's not going to work in Minnesota, let's be very clear here. He's not going to work anywhere, right? And you see it, you talk about it all the time in this league, right? It's not just about talent and your ability. It's about fit. If you come into a dumpster fire of an organization that has no structure, that has no stability, that doesn't have a good coaching staff, you're going to struggle. Minnesota checks all those boxes. O'Connell, viewed as one of the best head coaches in the National Football League, the tall Sean McVay, right? A very stable organization, quality ownership group that doesn't meddle, right? Good facilities, good stadium, great place to live, great place to play, right? Minnesota checks off all these boxes. If you can't have success in Minnesota, you're not going to succeed anywhere, right? Because you've had stories like Sam Darnold. Well, where was he? He was with the Jets and the Panthers. You could argue the two most dysfunctional franchises in the National Football League. Where was Baker Mayfield? Cleveland. That's right there, with the Jets and the Panthers, right? Not the case here for J.J. McCarthy and Minnesota. He's not going to go tonight, and, we'll see when he comes back. But it's been bad, the few times that he has been out there, and we'll see what Carson Wentz can provide here in this football game. Don't really have a lean, to be honest with you. Again, 3.5 points is currently the spread right now in favor of the Chargers. I think the money, public money, is pretty, split for the most part. It's not, a crazy, one way or another, to be completely honest with you. But, Herbert, he's viewed as one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. In my opinion, he is. I think we thought that there would be a little bit more stability around him. We thought the defense would be a little bit better. We thought they'd be able to run the football a little bit more effectively. But if you're these franchise quarterbacks and you're viewed as, an MVP level caliber guy, right? So I'm not saying Justin Herbert's going to be the MVP, but I'm sure he comes into the year. That's a realistic goal of his. Like, let's go out there and win the MVP. He's good enough to do it. You have to be able to overcome. Your defense is not playing well enough. You got to be able to overcome. Not running the football well enough. Got to be able to overcome. Guys are getting hurt. Guys are banged up. You're hurt. You're banged up. Got to be able to overcome. I think Justin Herbert is that guy, but in recent weeks, it hasn't looked great for the Chargers. It hasn't looked great. And this is an opportunity for both of these teams to really gain some confidence here and change perhaps the trajectory of their season. And that's just kind of how Thursday Night Football is. You saw it right here in this very city of Cincinnati last week with Pittsburgh, right? You win that game. Now it's all of a sudden like, oh, you got a mini bye. Now you got the Jets coming. You got the offense going. And it feels like, a whole new season. You go into this game Sunday against the Jets with confidence that you didn't even have since week 1 going into the game against Cleveland with Joe Burrow. Right? I mean, this is an opportunity here for the Chargers and the Vikings to kind of have that same kind of juice, right? I mean, Minnesota they need a win, especially in that division and the NFC North. And I think the Chargers understand, like, Kansas City's coming, And Denver, they haven't looked exactly buttoned up, but they're finding ways to win football games. They got a really good defense. They're going to be a threat as this thing kind of works towards the home stretch here, and that's going to be something that they have to deal with. But should be a great game tonight, Chargers and the Vikings. Thursday Night Football, 3.5 points in favor of the Los Angeles Chargers, and both these teams have an opportunity to really jumpstart things and turn the page here in this 2025 season. All right, Sean Payton. He made some comments the other day, and if you remember, Sean Payton, of course, he was the Saints coach for a long time, did a tremendous job, and then he was in the media for, I believe it was just 1 year, and then he came over to Denver and got a huge contract. He's one of the highest paid coaches in the National Football League. I think the world of Sean Payton. I think he is a terrific coach. When you're in a situation where Sean Payton is on the open market, you go out there and you get Sean Payton. I don't know if it was his decision or whatever to sit out for a year. Maybe it was. I don't quite remember, to be completely honest with you. But he's a terrific coach. Won a Super Bowl, of course, with the Saints. He understands offensive football. He's a good leader. Yeah, he's strict. Yeah, he kind of, maybe has a militant style about him a little bit and can be a little bit too hard on guys. But it's football, right? That's just kind of the nature of the game. But clearly, when he went to Denver, Russell Wilson was already in place. And clearly that was not the guy that Sean Payton wanted to be his quarterback, right? He kind of got to pick Drew Brees. And, of course, when you talk about Sean Payton, all the success he has had is pretty much directly tied to Drew Brees. And now it's getting, tied a little bit here to Bo Nix. Now, there were some times there Brees was banged up at the end of his career. He won a little bit there where they won some games, with Jameis and Taysom Hill and others there in New Orleans as well. But for the most part, it's, Brees or Sean Payton, and then you're throwing Drew Brees' name right in there as well. But clearly, there was issues with Russell Wilson in Denver, and I don't know if he necessarily gave him much of a chance coming in. Now, I want to be very clear here. I am not a Russell Wilson guy. I respect him for what he did in Seattle early in his career, right? What he did in college, at Wisconsin, then he comes in, and then, Matt Flynn is kind of in place, supposed to be the guy in Seattle, and then it's like, oh, no, Russell Wilson's actually better, and he deserves to be the quarterback, and he wins the Super Bowl very early in his career, and obviously should have went back-to-back. And that's obviously a conversation for a different day with, you could have just handed the ball off to Marshawn Lynch, you throw it, and obviously you lose that game, and Brady is able to pick up his fourth world championship there. But I don't view Russell Wilson as a Hall of Famer, right? And, I think candidly, ever since he left Seattle, that's kind of been it, right? Denver, that was a disaster. Of course, had opportunity in Pittsburgh where, that was all right. And then, it was like, oh, he's going to come here to the Giants, but we all knew it was only a matter of time before Jackson Darts was the guy. But this is what Sean Payton had to say. And this was really praise for Jackson Darts. But Russell Wilson, he got a little frustrated with it, and this has kind of been circling around social media. Let's take a listen.
They found a little spark with that quarterback. I was talking to John Mayer not too long ago, and I said we were hoping that change would have happened long after our game.
So there you have it. And Russell Wilson, I think, thought it was a bit of a shot at him. And, I don't know if, that is the case or not. But Russell Wilson is one of those guys. And if you saw it there, if you're watching on YouTube, the tweet from Russ said, classless, ... but not surprised, ... Didn't realize you're still bounty hunting 15-plus years later through the media. Laughing emoji. Hashtag let's ride. And, Russell Wilson is kind of, let's just say it how he is, right? He's a bit of a cornball, right? And, he throws on this persona that seems like it is a little bit fake, right, and not necessarily genuine. And he just, he constantly, it's sometimes like, Russ, like, your team is stinking right now. Show a little frustration. Be a little bit ticked off. And don't just be some, kind of walking meme, right, in a lot of ways. And, I was actually happy that Russell Wilson clapped back the way he did, to be honest with you. And I don't think, look, if I'm never going to be in a spot where I get in, Twitter beef or put my feelings out there on the internet. That's just not me, right? But, for the most part, I would, want pro athletes not to do that. And it's like, especially if you're a quarterback, you're, a leader with whatever team you're on. Like, just stay off Twitter, right? Just show up to work, put the work in, and then produce on game day. But in Russ's instance, I was happy that he did because like we've just kind of been waiting. It's like, Russ, people have been banging on you. People have been saying stuff about you, and you continue just to act like a cornball. And it's just like, dude, like just tell us how you really feel. And Russell Wilson he popped off on Sean Payton. So, again, I love Sean Payton. I respect Sean Payton. I think the world of Sean Payton. And who knows? Maybe he wasn't even really taking a shot at Russell Wilson. Part of me thinks, he was a little bit, and it wasn't just him showing love to Jackson Dart. But, look, I got no problem with Russ going out there and doing it. And, Russ has been – He's turned into kind of a journeyman here, which is kind of hard to believe, but it's just kind of the reality of the situation. And you hear the stories about, teammates coming out and saying these bad things about Russ, and like he didn't have any of his teammates at his wedding, right? And it's just like, he acts like he's this all-team guy, but it's like he doesn't even hang out with any of his teammates. So Russ has got issues, and again, I'm not a Russ fan, but I was happy to see him go out there. I know there's some people that are like, right, Russ, what are you doing? Getting your feelings hurt. He was criticizing. Or not criticizing, he was complimenting Jackson Dart. Like, why what are you doing? No, with Russ, I'm actually happy that he did this because he's just been a guy that has constantly just kind of said things where you're like, dude, like, just be you. Like, what are you doing? You're just a character up there. Like, just be a genuine human being. And I think you saw that a little bit there on social media from Russell Wilson. So I had no issues with that whatsoever, to be completely honest with you. All right, NBA. Let's get into some of my NBA predictions here on today's show. We did our NBA preview. That is up on the channel. If you haven't seen that already, make sure you go check that out. But I'm going to predict what I think is going to be the Western Conference Finals, and then moving on, obviously, to the NBA Finals after that as well. We've had, a little bit of. There's been 2 games here, right? It's like most people, when you do this, you probably should do it before you see the 2 games. I'll be honest, I haven't sat here and locked in to any of these games. I was watching the Bulls game last night against the Pistons. That ended up being a great game. The Bulls, I mean, they were kind of viewed as one of the worst teams in the NBA going into the year. They had a big lead for most of the game, tried to blow it, but were able to hang on for dear life. How about Matas Buzelis? 21 years old, first-round pick a couple of years ago. He might be the real deal. He might be the best player. I think the Bulls took him at like 12 or something. It was like kind of the middle of the first round, and it seems like he's the best player out of that draft class, so there's some reason to be optimistic there with the Chicago Bulls. They've been to the play-in 3 straight years. They've lost all 3 times to the Miami Heat, so don't view them as a threat this year as the Bulls continue to try to rebuild, right? I mean, you had the Derrick Rose years over a decade ago, and that was great. And, my take on that is Derrick Rose would be viewed as, I'm not going to say Mount Rushmore. That's only 4 guys. But he would be viewed as, like, they got that All-NBA top 75. Like, he'd be in that mix if he didn't have those injuries. Derrick Rose was absolutely unbelievable. They were the 1 seed, right? They were going to beat LeBron before he got hurt. And then, obviously, the Bulls really have never been able to bounce back from that. And they've kind of been in this constant, rebuilding phase here. But, yeah, I'm excited to get to the United Center at some point. I haven't been there. I've been to Wrigley in Chicago, but haven't been to the United Center. And just the history of that place, you get chills just seeing the intro music, and then they pan to the rafters, and you got, Jordan's 23 up there and Scotty's number and, the 6 banners. It's incredible stuff. But the Bulls, of course, are a ways away from, getting back to that level of basketball. But conference finals, the Western Conference, look, is a gauntlet. I think over the past couple of years, it's like Boston's been so good, and here comes Cleveland and the Sixers. They have Embiid, they have a chance with him, and then here come the Pacers, right? But a few years prior to that, the West just dominated, and it feels like we're kind of back to one of those seasons. As it relates to the NBA, to be completely honest with you. The East, the good news is it's anybody's conference. Like anybody, there are several teams that could go up there and win it. And really, I don't think if you said, X team is going to win the East, I wouldn't be like, there's no way, or, that's a complete shock. No, it's completely wide open as it relates to that. But we'll start in the West here. And look, the Oklahoma City Thunder, I mentioned this earlier in the week on the show. I think you get caught up and these teams win the title, right? And, I mentioned it with the Nuggets and the Celtics there, and you're like, wow, they're just so good. They won the title. They're going to come back and do it again next year. And the reality is, in this day and age of the NBA, that doesn't really happen. And then I kind of made the argument like, well, the Thunder, it seems a little bit different. They're all so young. They're all coming back. They're all clearly hungry to do it again, just kind of hearing the vibe around the team a little bit. After, during the ring ceremony on opening night. It's like, oh, these guys are starving to get back. Jalen Williams, of course, coming back from injury. He's not back yet. That's obviously a big loss for the Thunder here at this point. Look, the Thunder, they're going to go to the Western Conference Finals, in my opinion. I just think that's going to be kind of what happens here at this point. When you're talking about the Thunder, they got too many pieces. They defend so well. They've got young talent. They've got a good coach. Stable organization, stable ownership group. They know what they're doing from a personnel perspective. Shea, of course, won the MVP last year. He's tremendous, right? And he was kind of a non-factor there in the first half against the Rockets opening night, and then boom, just kind of pops out onto the scene there in the second half. Did a tremendous job. Shea's going to be great. Chet's incredible. He kind of held things down for him in the first half of that game there as well. The Thunder, they're going to be one of the best teams in the league. They're going to win a lot of games, and I think personally they're going to find themselves back in the Western Conference Finals. And the team in which I think they are going to be playing is the San Antonio Spurs. And Victor Wembanyama, look, he had the blood clot issues, and obviously, as a young guy, that is, very concerning, and you certainly hope that doesn't show up again, right, for Wembanyama. If he stays healthy, he will win a championship at some point, and he will win an MVP at some point. He's an alien out there. The guy is 7'4". I think he's 7'4". Maybe he's 7'2". I think he's 7'4". And he's got handles, and he can shoot, and he can dunk, and he can pass. He's a complete freak show out on the court, a complete freak show. And obviously when you have a guy like that moving around like that, health is a big concern. Again, I mentioned the blood clots. That's a concern. But if he's healthy, it's only a matter of time. And he's a kid still, by the way. It's only a matter of time before the Spurs win a championship. Obviously, Pop has gone upstairs. President of basketball operations, I believe, no longer the head coach. One of the assistants was promoted. But Wembanyama, he's that guy. And obviously, he has an advantage being as tall as he is. But that is a really, really good team if he could stay healthy. And you've got pieces around him as well. De'Aaron Fox, by the way, is hurt. They were able to get him in that trade. Remember that 3-team trade that, Levine and DeRozan, they left Chicago, went to Sacramento, and Trey Jones and Herter and those guys went to Chicago. It was a big 3-team trade, and the Spurs ended up getting De'Aaron Fox, and they're going to get him back, and he's going to be tremendous, right? He had that run a couple of years ago with Sacramento, and he's kind of been quiet the past couple of years. He's a really good player. He's a really good point guard, and he's going to fit in beautifully with Wembanyama. And Stephon Castle, he's incredible. He was now a second-year player out of UConn. He was, one of my favorite players as a freshman at UConn. I think he was kind of what propelled them over the top and allowed them to win the national title. He can flat-out defend. He's in year 2. He's tremendous. They're on that team, and they've just got several pieces all around there as well. And I'm really excited about this Spurs team if Wembanyama can stay healthy. When you look at things on the Eastern Conference side, I mentioned earlier in the week, I just don't think New York, Jalen Brunson, I like him. I respect him. He's tremendous. Clutch player of the year last year. Incredibly clutch. Incredible scorer. Incredible leader. I don't know if he can be the best team on a team that wins a championship, or the best player on a team that wins a championship. I don't know if he can be. It doesn't mean I don't think they're getting to the Eastern Conference Finals, though, because they're all back, and they got a new coach, Mike Brown, instead of Thibodeau. I respect Tom Thibodeau. But, it's 2025, and you're going to sit there and play your starters every minute of every single game. That's just stupidity. What are you doing? You have to adjust off that a little bit. And the load management stuff has gotten, carried away in the NBA, no doubt about it. But you can't do that. You got to give these guys some rest. You got to have, more guys that you work into a rotation here. And Mike Brown's going to do that. He's going to change their playing style. I think he just brings more of a joy, right? Because Thibs is all basketball all the time, no fun, no nonsense. And, that can wear on you after you do that for a few years, especially if you're not winning titles and hoisting trophies, right? Belichick, it worked so long in New England. Why? Because they were winning like crazy. Yeah, the Knicks have won a lot of games over the past few years, but they're not raising trophies. And, is it unfortunate for him that he got fired after all the wins? Yeah, but they needed a shakeup. They needed some more joy into playing the game. I think especially with basketball, you got to play with joy, man. It can't just be, no fun, all, no nonsense, just strictly, we're going to compete each and every night for every single minute. You got to be, it's not football. It's a little bit different. And you got to have a different style, in my opinion, to be successful here in 2025, especially with these young guys, right? You got guys now, the Knicks are a bit of an older team, but here in the NBA, you got guys that are playing professional basketball, and they're not even 20 years old. So I think just a change in culture a little bit is going to be beneficial for New York. They're going to win a lot of games. Got them facing off in the Eastern Conference Finals with the Philadelphia 76ers. For several years, the Sixers it's like, oh, they're going to go to the NBA Finals. Oh, they have a chance to win it all, and they continuously get to the playoffs and choke. Right? And Joel Embiid, he can't stay healthy. He's hurt. By the way, I mean, these predictions, like if a star player gets hurt, like it's, borderline wraps at that point. But nobody's really talking about them. Tyrese Maxey is a dog. And how about VJ Edgecombe? Yeah, that guy's really good. As he had his first game last night, he went off. He scored a ton of points there in the game. And if he can be someone that is really, really good for them, and you can pair him with Maxey, and if Embiid can stay healthy, they're going to be really, really good. So I've got that being the Eastern Conference Finals there. And sticking right there, I think the Phillies going to come out of the East. I do. If Embiid's healthy, look, I don't sit here and pretend to like Joel Embiid, right? I think the MVP that he won should have been Jokic's, but they just kind of were tired of giving it to Jokic, so they gave it to Embiid. Right, but look, if they can stay healthy, Maxey's incredible, right? They've got kind of it's a stable foundation they can build around. Say what you want about Embiid, but he's a great player. Edgecombe appears to be a hit. They've got some depth there on that team. I think they're going to go to the NBA Finals and kind of silence some doubters there a little bit. And then look, I've got the Spurs pulling an upset. I've got the Spurs pulling an upset here and knocking off the reigning champion, the Thunder. It'd just be kind of boring to go up here and say that the Thunder are going to repeat. Wouldn't surprise me at all if it happened. But, I mean, just seeing Wembanyama, and I get it was one game against the Mavericks yesterday, but they just completely dominated the Mavericks. And seeing him, like he was matched up with AD, and it was a one-on-one situation, and he was just crossing him up, and he like hit a step back, and it was an and one. He got fouled. He made it. The dude is over 7 feet tall, well over 7 feet, and he's doing that. That is just absolutely ridiculous. AD looked like he was my height out there, and AD's huge. Right? So just Wembanyama's a complete freak show. Only a matter of time before that team, if he can stay healthy, wins the championship. And I'll be a little bit aggressive here, and I say they're going to get to the finals. I got them winning the finals. I think they defend well enough. I think, and a lot of times, I don't think promoting, when your coach leaves, promoting is always the best situation. Sometimes it's like, well, let's go outside the company a little bit, and let's find the best available guy. Not the case here with San Antonio. What he's been able to do, Pop obviously is their guy, tremendous, one of the best coaches of all time. And, he had the health issues. If he didn't have those, he probably would still be the head coach here at this point. He goes upstairs. It's still very much got a Pop feel to it. Like, this isn't a completely different team. It kind of feels like, Pop's still running it. And, it's a guy that's been in the organization for a long time. He gets promoted, and he's kind of the new guy here beyond Pop. And I think that's going to really help them a lot. When De'Aaron Fox is going to come back, that's going to be electric. But, I've got the San Antonio Spurs and Victor Wembanyama hoisting the trophy this year. And, I think the NBA, and they've done a good job of this, but if he can stay healthy, they really need to wrap their arms around him because, he's not an American, but, he speaks English, and, he seems like a really good kid, has his head screwed on properly, and he's a great player. And, he should be featured. You got LeBron and Steph as often as you can on these primetime, big-time network games. Wembanyama should be right there as well. I get him on TV as much as possible. And, he's a tremendous talent. He is a complete freak. And if you haven't watched him yet, I really encourage you to do it. So I've got the San Antonio Spurs getting it done and hoisting the trophy here at the end of the season. All right, just about out of time here. By the way, we had a video go up on the channel yesterday. We had the Chatterbox Championship, of course, a golf tournament, 2-man scramble. There was 4 different qualifiers, and then that went on throughout the summer. And then we faced off at Stone Valley, and there was 2 matches there on the front 9, and then the winners of those went on to the back 9 and competed for $50,000. It was great to be a part of. Certainly a lot of work for the folks here at Chatterbox. But the video that went up last night, it premiered last night at 9 o'clock, I think. Tremendous. Literally incredible stuff. I mean, this is like all world stuff. The production is unbelievable. The content is unbelievable, and a pretty solid match there as well. So really encourage you to get over there and check it out. I mean, this is something that should, go crazy. Obviously, we're not just a golf channel. We do a lot of stuff here at Chatterbox, so it might take a little bit to get a little bit of traction, but this is like all world stuff here, this video, and I'm not yanking your chain here by any stretch. This is the real deal. So it is our featured video up on our channel right now. Trace Fowler and Ian are really the brains behind this, as they've done a tremendous job with the editing process, and this is award-worthy caliber stuff here. And even if you're not a golf fan, I would encourage you to go over there and check it out. I retweeted it on my Twitter page. Again, it's the featured video on our channel. It's called 2025 Chatterbox Golf Championship, Cincinnati Winner Takes All Scramble. Tremendous. It's about an hour and a half. Well worth your time. Check it out. Again, Ian, Trace Fowler, an unbelievable job with that. I don't know if the plan is to do it again next year. Again, it was a lot of work for a lot of people, but the final product here, they spent so much time on that. I think I saw Trace said it was over 200 hours for Ian. So big shout out to Ian for doing that, because it's an unbelievable video. And again, even if you're not a golf fan, I would encourage you to go over there and check that out. Chatterbox Championship, that was the real deal, and that really worked out beautifully. We'll talk more Bengals tomorrow on the show. We'll see if we got another guest. Hudson Clokey, appreciate him stopping by, talking UC Bearcats. Even got a little Bearcat basketball conversation into the show a little bit there as well. That will be up on our YouTube page later today, and of course will be up on the podcast there as well, as multiple clips will go out throughout the duration of the day, and on our social medias there as well. Give me a follow at StoneShields_. Give the show a follow there as well. Appreciate everybody hanging out throughout the duration of the show. And again, if you missed any parts of the show, totally fine. Podcast will be up later this afternoon. Got a fun show tomorrow. We'll do our college football weekend preview as we always do. We'll do our keys to victory for the Cincinnati Bengals. We'll have our best bets of the weekend, and perhaps we'll have another guest on the show there as well. That's all coming up tomorrow. But until then, take care, everybody.